Jerry Barry.
Okay, Jerry, what three words friends and family would use to describe you? What three words friends and family would describe you?
Well, I've often heard them say that I'm extremely talented, gifted, so unusual in my approaches to things. But mainly they talk about me being very artistic and talented. I see myself as an artist. I see myself as a teacher. As a matter of fact, I've been a teacher all my life, and I've been an artist all my life, pursued both careers. I also see myself as a philosopher. I think deeply about things, and I've always had my own slant on issues. I am an author. I have been writing not only inspirational, but also other kinds of materials. But I'm also a poet. I've been a poet all my life, a secret one, you know that. I wrote only for myself. It's only in another few months or so I may be releasing some of my poems. Before I wake up in the morning, I'm already inspired. I always have something on my mind, especially now. Sometimes I get up into the wee hours of the morning with an inspiration already boiling up in me. And that is how I write. That's how I get my inspirations to draw. It may be a continued effort to solve an issue in my mind. I continue to work with an idea, and I go to bed with it. And I get up in the morning to deal with it.
Who would you say inspired you?
Well, when you say who it was interesting because the first true inspiration I got, I didn't know who the artist was. As a little boy, when I first saw this painting, it was in a commercial store and this showcase window. And I stumbled upon it as a little boy. And every day I would come to get my dose of absorbing that painting into my system. The painting totally hypnotized me. And from then on, I always wanted to become an artist, to do something like that. Later on, I met real artists. One of them, E.R. Burroughs, and in Guyana, who is the founder of they call him the father of art in Guyana, E.R. Burroughs. And then another artist named Junior, whom I never had the privilege to meet. He actually was an ordinary artist, just an artist in the country who did work. And when I saw his work, I was so impressed with it, I wanted to do that. Now, I met Vincent van Gogh, and then I started to get more inspired. He was the one that inspired me more than all the other artists, the other European artists that I knew. As an artist from the Caribbean, one of our biggest issues is exposure. It's difficult for us to get the kind of exposure we deserve. I don't say what we need, what we deserve, because there's a lot of creative work, but we don't get the kind of exposure we need. That basically is the issue as an artist. The other one is the kind of reception you get, because most most patrons may have been conditioned to only view a certain type of art as true art, and so they come looking for that kind of art, and so they come and try to tell you, could you do this kind of art? That is what we would like. And I can't do that. I don't. I'm not able to do that.
How long have you been an artist?
All my life, I have been drawing and painting all my life for as long as I know myself. I am in my 60s now. I'm a senior, but I've been painting since I was a very small kid. So I need to mention that I had also been an art teacher. I've been an art teacher for most of my life. For over 40 years, I've been teaching in Guyana, and here in the United States, I've been teaching. And so I've been involved in art and craft because I've also mentored craftsmen in various media as a teacher and I need to mention also I was once a principal of the Borough School of Art. So I more operated in the capacity of a consultant to other artists who actually came and asked me for advice and help. I'm very multifaceted in my artistic indulgence. So
are you self-taught or did you go to school? Are you self-taught or did you learn?
Well, basically, I would say I am basically self-taught. I did go to school. I got my master's in fine arts from University of Hartford. Eventually, I got my degree in art, my bachelor's degree in art education from Illinois State University. But that was for teaching. So being a teacher and an artist, an art teacher, you could see me straddling both sides, operating as an art educator. That is what basically I am. When did I first drawing and painting? You know, I'm from the Caribbean, and when I was a little kid, I used to wake up every morning and see this beautiful sunsets coming up there. If you ever saw real dynamic sunsets in it. And I always wanted to do those drawings. So my first inspiration was light, and I would draw little things. And then I would start drawing birds and flowers. I was not yet even in kindergarten, and I was drawing. When eventually I attended school, I became like the inspiration for all my other classmates because I was drawing so prolifically. And eventually there was a competition. My teachers spotted the talent and they set up a competition. And they set up a task for me, for us to do it. And I took off, I won the competitions, and from then on, my greatest sponsor was my aunt and my father. They both encouraged me, and they would buy the things and give me the materials, art materials, and they would be just fascinated with what I do. And so that's what got me going, and I never stopped until today. I'm a painter who works basically in oils, acrylic, and watercolor. I have experimented heavily in both of them, as you will see some of my paintings. But I'm also a leather artist. I also work with leathercraft, do leathercraft. I also do ceramics. I'm a clay artist. I also do wood carving. I love all these things. As a matter of fact, I'm a sculptor, painter. So in the United States here, where I could not get the materials to do the sculpture as I would like, or the space, you will notice I have translated it into my paintings. So I was able to be both sculptor and painter.
How many mediums do you work with?
Yeah, I would say about 5. Oils, acrylics, watercolor, ceramics, leather, and wood. Basically, yeah, I've had solo shows, several solo shows all over. In Guyana, basically, I used to have my own at the Pegasus Hotel in Guyana. But then when I moved here, I started to do at the Windsor Art Center in Connecticut. I've had a show. At UConn, I've had a show. At Villanova University, I've had a major show. I can't remember the date right now. And prior to that, when I came here to study, I had done a show at Illinois State University, a one-man show, the marching band series. So I've had a few very dynamic.
What is your purpose in life?
Well, I'm discovering myself every day. As I get older, I discover more about myself. But basically, I would like to be a philosopher of the world. I would like to be a mentor of young people, especially minority people. I think deeply about issues that affect us in the world today. So, as I didn't mention that I'm also a writer. So I write books. As a matter of fact, only yesterday I had a book signing for 2 of my books. Life's Lessons from a Kitchen Garden and Our Journey Through the Seasons. Both will give a very deep reflection of the kind of person I am and what I stand for. This painting is entitled Dancers. I could safely say it's the first of my 3D paintings that I've started to do, where the sculptor in me is reflected in the painting. The material the raised surfaces were done with paper mache. I got this inspiration for dancers when I was asked to do participate in a fair for the Saratoga Music Festival, Jazz Festival. And I'm normally a landscape painter. My friends insisted that I do something. And I got this inspiration and I came down and I took paper mache and I actually molded these figures. And after I had done that, I wanted to represent the song in the painting. So after I painted the painting, I wanted the vibration of the song to be in the background. So those are the reasons for the vibration and all the. So this painting was uniquely done for a specific purpose, to bring out the movement and the sound in the painting. I was experimenting with that idea. How do you represent song and so on in paint? and the 3D helped it. But also, it's important that I state that this was a study for a series of paintings I'm doing and I'm working on even now. They're called the Transition Series. And this painting was done in preparation for a larger painting, which is very, very large, called Tribute, in which you have dancers and everything. It's like a mural-sized painting. And so most of these smaller ones you see here are studies for the major piece some major piece that I'm working on. So that's important to state that. Okay. This one was done only recently. I was writing a book called In the Sanctuary of My Mind. And in this book, I reinterpret Bible stories. Jonah and the whale, Samson and Delilah, and those things. So I would take 3 of those stories and put them into one book, and I would reinterpret them in the way I think that they are relevant to our daily lives. Now, for the cover of the book, I wanted something that represented the idea of wisdom flowing from within. So the idea of the waterfall, the flowing of wisdom, lilies, symbolic of peace and love, etc. And this massive sculpture in the landscape is the humanity in us, around where the waters flow. And I'm saying the wisdom of the world is in us and with us. We don't need to go looking away from ourselves to acquire the wisdom. If we will learn how to identify, read the metaphors of ordinary things in life to reach the higher principles that direct us. Okay? This is typically, this is my typical, my conventional way I work. I would take brush, that's acrylic. I was just showing a friend how you can use acrylic and still acquire the brush marks and the values and so on, because there's this feeling that you cannot control acrylic while it is still wet. I said no, and I did it. So this is typically how I paint. I like to paint like a Van Gogh, with the brush and the brush marks, and everything must be very expressive. So this would be typical of the kind of thing I would do. Okay? This one is called Vibrations. And why? Because it is, I think, the first time that I started a painting without making sketches. I took the brush like a Van Gogh and I started this painting there. The light represented the song, the initial song, and then I worked in the vibrations actually going through the drummer. So as the drummer beats, the vibrations just flow, you see, and the light comes down upon it. It was one of the most impulsive paintings I had done. This one, you will notice, is another experiment. Experimenting with light and song through the medium of paint. This is called melody, because there is a trumpeter, there is a cello player, and the piano player with the droplets of of sound, like droplets of sound filtering into the air, and all controlled or mediated with the light. So incidentally, they were all done in preparation for the transition series paintings. So you will see some of this, the results of some of this, into the larger transition paintings that I work, that I am, which hopefully will be finished soon. I hope by next year to release a book explaining one part of that painting. This one is called Shoppers. I had been visiting Barbados, and as soon as I disembarked from a bus, I saw this scene that just captured me. At the time, I worked in a style, a particular style of design called refractions of light. And so the refraction would come from the corner there and it spread out. And so my paintings would actually have started there where the light was, and I would work the phases of light in. I didn't want realism. I wanted the impact of the light I want to simplify the forms to create a design more or less, and not really to do so much on the realistic aspect. But of course, and so I was getting carried away with the impulsive painting like I did with the others, and I was doing a lot of this. I was into this for several years, doing refractions. I even did that with landscapes and scenery and so on. So this is one of my style I'm known by in Guyana. Okay? When I actually got started painting, I was a landscape painter. I would go into the country and wait for a beautiful sunset. I worked strictly with light. All my images are controlled or dominated by light. And I would go into the country and I would sketch these. My friends used to call me the old house artist because I used to do all the old country houses. I was known for coming around and just sketching and so on. And so these are some of the sketches I had done. I have hundreds of sketches like these all over the country of the time when I used to do them. At present, I had done these two especially for an exhibition at the Guyana Museum in 2007. But now I'm working on some major pieces of those landscapes in a series called the Guyana series, which obviously is not finished yet, but should be finished soon. But this one is a scene way back in the country, in a place called Rosignol in Guyana, Lancaster Square, in Berbice, Guyana. This is one of my watercolors. I work with two different media for watercolors. I work with the conventional watercolor and with acrylic. I dilute acrylic, and I've been experimenting doing those, and I've learned to master the acrylic in watercolor. So, but this is the conventional watercolor, Morning Lily. I was exploring the concept of flowing with a brush, sort of drawing with the brush, and not doing the illustrating kind of thing where you illustrate the painting first and then you paint it. I was flowing with the brush, so you could see I flowed with the paint. You have more flexibility with the conventional watercolor to do that. So I was able to take advantage of it and do that. So this is one of them. Eventually I did some really large pieces which I want to bring out in a series of paintings I have called the Park series. This is a collection of paintings of the three parks, two parks in New York City, that is Prospect Park and Central Park. Yeah, in Connecticut, where I am, there is Elizabeth Park. So I have paintings of those three parks, and very soon I need to release the paintings. I've done several acrylic studies in acrylic watercolor studies that are much larger than those. It was funny that I started painting with the palette knife because one of my students said he couldn't paint. He could draw well, but he doesn't want to paint. He's afraid of paint. And so in order to urge him to paint, I said, look, you can paint with anything if you can draw. And so I took the knife and I said, I will show you how to draw with this knife. And I took the paint and I did a small study. And from then on, he was inspired to work, to paint from then. But since then, I was stuck on this palette knife painting. Strictly palette knife. I would just make a light sketch and I would just use the paint and go in. Now, incidentally, this painting is done with just three colors: red, yellow, blue, and white. And by playing, juxtaposing the light and the shade and the values of the colors and the mixtures, you achieve all these colors that are in this painting. It was a major awakening for me. I remember I landed in Barbados and I saw this beautiful sunset. And instead of going into the water, I made studies of it. And I went back to the hotel and I took out my paint. And for 3 days, I worked on this one painting with the knife, trying to prove to myself that I can do it. This is a major painting for me. And from then, you will see most of my other studies, they are palette knife for years. Although I work with a brush too, but palette knife was my thing. Thank you.
My name is Olajide Ojo. but the Alba that comes with it is the colonial type of name, which I'm trying very hard to see that I put aside. So my full name is Olajide Ojo. If you want to call me by this name, you can call me Jide Ojo. Jide Ojo is more precise and familiar.
What 3 words, friends and family, would use to describe you?
I would say family.
How would you describe yourself?
Well, I'm just an ordinary African man, precisely from Nigeria, who came to this country in 1972, and I'm making the best of it.
Okay. What inspires you to wake up every morning?
To be precise, what inspires me to wake up every morning is my art. And my family, of course.
Who would you say inspired you?
Who inspired me?
Yes.
I inspired myself, to be precise, and to be sincere.
What challenges have you struggled with to become an artist? What are your challenges?
My challenge is many. One of them is ability to be able to put down what I want to do precisely. Now that I have the money to buy anything I want to do my art, I still have to struggle with certain ideas that I am working very hard to put down. So these ideas, I have to struggle and go through all kinds of medias to do that.
How long have you been an artist?
Almost all my life. Maybe 60-something years.
Are you self-taught or did you go to school to learn art?
Originally, when I started doing this, I was self-taught because I would draw on the walls of my homes in my little town called Ilesha in Nigeria before I started going to school.
When did you start drawing or painting? When?
Drawing or painting, I would say it dates back to about more than 50 years. More than 50 years.
How many mediums do you work in?
I've worked with many mediums. I worked with dry medium and I worked with wet medium, acrylic, oils, watercolor.
Do you belong to any art organization?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I belong to Fulton Art Fair organization.
Have you had any commissions?
Not yet. I'm looking towards one.
What about your work in private or public collections?
I have numerous works in private and public collections. I have some works that have been bought from me directly, some works bought from this gallery, and some collection like Schoenberg Center in Manhattan and other private organizations in my country, in Nigeria.
Have you exhibited your own individual art show?
Yes. Last September, I exhibited The Children of the Ancestor at the gallery in Chelsea called Rush Arts Gallery.
Tell us about Dorsey. How important is Dorsey Galleries to you?
Well, I got to meet Mr. Dorsey many years ago, and I received so many encouragements from him about my showing my work here. But somehow something happened, I couldn't make it that time. But now, over the years, I realized that this is an institution in Brooklyn that must be held down, that must be encouraged and endorsed. So this gallery is very important to me.
Okay. Who are you and what is your purpose in life?
I am Jide Ojo. I came to America in 1972. I have families that I have to work with. My purpose in life is to do my art and take care of my family, my grandchildren, and my extended family in Nigeria.
All right. Now, you are at the Dorsey Art Gallery, and the theme for the exhibit is called Colored Sensation. Tell us about some of your pieces that you put in it.
Well, when you look at color sensation, there are some of the works that are very colorful. My work is colorful too, but to less extent. I believe in color in my art. So the Children of the Ancestors, for that matter, which has some segments of the project here, have some colors in them, but the colors are muted. They are not as vibrant as you would think. So I'm trying to keep the colors subdued, like half color. So that's my approach to using color in my art.
Well, I want to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to interview you, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for interviewing me. I hope something good comes out of it.
Yes, it will.
Thank you. Inshallah.
Go.
Okay. This piece here is just an idea that I picked up very recently about found objects, which come from the art that people do call found object or art povera. And this art piece here has to do with the lenses that I collected and then placed down, which is not that time consuming, but I want it simple this way.
Okay, so go.
The talk will be brief. This one is my first attempt of doing bubbles and busts. I was struggling to find out how to approach it, and I started working on this more than 10 years ago, and then when I finished it, I was impressed with what I was doing. Eventually, I moved from using the real strings or ropes into casting, hence the one below. Can you show the one below? Mm-hmm. So hence the one below, it's made out of a mold, cast mold of resins and coal. So this is what I do now, and I will continue to improve on as time goes by.